Well, it is breaking news. Kevin Durant is now out of Phoenix. He gets his desired, one of his three desired destinations, ends up on the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets give up Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the 10th pick in this year's draft, and 5 future second round picks. This deal, in my humble opinion, is a highway robbery for the Houston Rockets. I think the Houston Rockets absolutely cooked up on this deal. I think they win this deal handily. And I think this was a game of chicken between two organizations. We saw a lot of reporting, today, early in the morning, that this deal is going to get done today or tomorrow. And I got to say, I have some thoughts about the Suns. And if you're a Suns fan who's, come here to maybe, hey, Rob, are you going to make us feel better about, Jalen Green? Are you going to try to sell us on the vision of Jalen Green, all star, all NBA? No, I am not. If you came here to feel better, you're going to feel worse. I guarantee it. I 100% guarantee you're going to feel worse. Here's the thing. The Phoenix Suns under Matt Ishbia have been chasing headlines. I mentioned this on the panel when we were live, at 1:00 on the panel, talking about Game 7, which we're going to talk about today as well. So, just brief overview here. We're going to talk about this trade. Then we're going to talk about, Game 7 tonight. Indiana, OKC. We did not do a post game for Game 6. I was sick to my stomach, and I was editing. But we'll talk about, what happened in Game 6 and what could potentially happen in Game 7. And then, we're definitely going to talk a little bit about the draft. This is not going to be a super long episode, but shout outs to all of you who watched our mock draft video yesterday live. You certainly, the algorithm is doing wonders with that video. It's doing very, very well. Thank you to everyone who sent super chats during the live stream. Thank you to everyone who sent e-transfers. Very humbling. It was quite a bit of work. And my only thought is next year we're going to do it even bigger and do it even better. Okay. So to this point of the Phoenix Suns, they've been chasing headlines. Matt Ishbia is chasing headlines. Okay. That's what he's been doing. Trading for Kevin Durant, trading Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, all that stuff. You don't really have a championship core, but I understood it. You're chasing relevance. You're a new owner. You might feel a little bit insecure. You want other, governors around the league and other organizations to respect your team. You want the preseason hype. You want, the ticket sales. So you go and trade for Kevin Durant. If you've watched Moneyball, that's exactly what they talk about organizations that are bad doing. They're chasing the headlines. They're chasing the big names, right? This reminds me a little bit, not a one for one, but it reminds me a little bit of the Toronto Raptors under Glenn Grunwald getting a 38-year-old or 39-year-old Hakeem Olajuwon, thinking that was the piece that was going to put you over the top. And at the time, you could have sold yourself on the idea that maybe Hakeem Olajuwon is the missing piece, but he was over the hill. And I'm not saying KD was over the hill when the Suns traded for him, but I don't think anyone picked them to be championship favorites when they made that deal, and they gave up a hell of a lot. They gave up those picks, and those picks are still biting them in the butt. And they did it again when they traded for Bradley Beal, right? You want to pair Devin Booker, Kevin Durant with Bradley Beal. You need the big three, right? Matt Ishbia and, whoever is running the show there is completely out to lunch. And when it came down to this deal, the reason that I thought that RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl would be a pretty decent offer for them is partially because I think that they would see RJ Barrett as a big enough name. Little did I realize Jalen Green might be a bigger name than RJ Barrett right now. The Raptors weren't a very good team. The Houston Rockets were a good team. Jalen Green, was a number one player in his draft class not too long ago, just signed. That extension kicks in this summer. The Rockets will not pay a dime of that extension. Instead, they jettison him over to the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns get back Jalen Green and really Dillon Brooks. And I don't think either one of those players are that valuable. I really don't. Okay. Nolan saying, "Hey Pen, would you give up RJ Barrett, Jakob, and our 2026 top 5 protected for Jalen Green and 10? Nope. Actually, hold on. Let me think about that. And 10. Maybe. Yeah, I might do that. And the reason for that would be the number 10 pick. And I would hope to hell that I could rehab Jalen Green's value and, shuttle him off to another team. And there's some reports right now that maybe, just maybe, the Phoenix Suns are looking to do just that. But I understand. I understand. Look, the value in this deal really is just comes down to Kevin Durant for that number 10 pick. Jalen Green is a distraction. Dillon Brooks is a perfectly serviceable player. He's close to 30. I mean, what are you doing if you're the Phoenix Suns here? You just negotiated a deal with the Houston Rockets. The Rockets were desperate to make this move. Giannis was not coming. KD is the best player on the market. Franz Wagner is not available. Trey Murphy is going to be more expensive. So if they didn't get this done, what was their next option? Ime Udoka clearly wants to compete right now. He just signed an extension. So you kind of had them by the balls. Kevin Durant was their best option. And I'm assuming that Raphael Stone probably played it very, very cool in that negotiation, probably saying, like, hey, if you guys think you have a better option, good luck. And Kevin Durant certainly had a part to play in dictating his trade destination, saying that he didn't want to play for this team and that team. And so other teams were left thinking, are we trading for a rental? And that impacted your price. So when Kevin Durant said that he'd be willing to go to Houston, I do think that it made the deal a little bit harder for the Rockets, because now you're negotiating with the perspective that you can't just say, well, it's just a rental, because KD is sort of agreeing to be there long term. But despite that, to only get back Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, and this number 10 pick in a bunch of seconds, I think when you're negotiating with a team that holds your picks going forward, I think you needed those picks back, man. So in terms of the value, I think what the Phoenix Suns chose to value right now is the moment. I think they chose to value the present moment. They took that number 10 pick because it's the most immediate team building thing that they could possibly do right now. They took Jalen Green because he's a big name. They took Dillon Brooks because, he helps their depth and helps them compete. But if you look at this team right now, go look down their roster. Who is their center? Nick Richards? You think you're going to win with players like this? You think that defense, Kevin Durant was one of their best defenders this year. You have added Dillon Brooks, who is a better defender than Kevin Durant, but you have also added a high volume scorer who needs the ball in his hands to score, and he does not really fit with Devin Booker. Who's your point guard? You needed a guard and you needed a center back in this deal. And that's why I think, from the Phoenix side, they would be much better off going with the Raptors offer of Jakob Poeltl and RJ Barrett. So much better off. So that's my perspective on it. I think RJ Barrett is relatively similar, if not better, than Jalen Green. And I think Jakob Poeltl is much more of a fit with that team than Dillon Brooks. So what's the big grab here? The number 10 pick? That's your big grab. Maybe the Raptors weren't willing to give you their number 9 pick. I don't think they were willing to give that number 9 pick, and maybe that was the negotiation. Maybe. I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know. Unless, Masai Ujiri writes a book, we'll never know. But maybe the Raptors were willing to trade that number 9 pick. I doubt it. But if the two deals that the Suns had on the table were the Rockets deal, which was Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, and number 10, versus the Raptors deal of RJ, Jakob, and number 9, the RJ Jakob deal makes much more sense. Much more sense. But assuming that the Raptors did not offer the number 9 pick, then I certainly understand this. How valuable is Jalen Green? I think he's a negative contract. That's how valuable he is. I don't think he's worth that price. He's not a good defender. He's not consistent, low efficiency, hasn't gotten much better over the last 4 years. I don't think he's a high value play. If you can reroute him, or if this opens up a deal for trading Devin Booker, then I certainly understand it. But at that point, you're going to be a really bad team. You trade Devin Booker and give the ball to Jalen Green, you're going to be a terrible team. You're going to be the Rockets from 3 years ago. Well, now I have to ask, what about your picks? You could have negotiated with one of two teams that actually had your pick in 2026, or in the case of the Rockets going forward, and you didn't get those picks back. So to me, this feels like the Suns are in a worse position today than they were yesterday. And that's exactly what it means to lose a trade. Now, what could they do with that number 10 pick? I don't know. Probably they're thinking they're going to draft a center. Maybe Kaman Malawesh drops down to them. Maybe the kid who just played at Arizona, Carter Bryant, could be an option for them. Those two guys are off the board. Maybe they look at Derek Queen. Maybe they have, their eyes set on Jeremiah Fears. Maybe they think one of Jeremiah Fears or Kasparis Yakushonis could be there at 10 for them, and they can fill up that point guard need there. That's still a rookie. Whether it's Carter, whether it's Kaman, they're not going to change your outcome very much next year. And you don't have your pick. And I don't think this roster, as constructed, is going to make the playoffs. I don't see how you can lose Kevin Durant and make the playoffs. Now let's talk about from the Houston Rockets side. The Houston Rockets absolutely destroyed this deal. They didn't give up very much. They got to hold on to Jabari. They got to hold on to Amen Thompson. Obviously, I don't think Amen Thompson was even remotely being offered in this deal. They did not have to get off of Alperen Sengun. So they still have their core. Jalen Green was not necessarily a part of their core. If you listen to anybody who covers the Rockets, if you listen to people who are more plugged in with that organization, they didn't have the greatest feelings about him. He was always on the outside looking in within that organization. The minute they got Ime Udoka, he's not an Ime Udoka type player. You know who is an Ime Udoka type player? Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is 100% an Ime Udoka type player. And the reason that I bring up the fact that they didn't have to get rid of all those other pieces, like the Tari Easons and the Jabari Smiths and all those guys, is they're not done. They're not done. They're not done. I can guarantee it. They are not done. They have a veteran-laden team. Fred VanVleet has a team option. They are going to decline it and probably sign him to a reasonable deal. So you have Fred, you have Kevin Durant. You're probably you're definitely keeping Amen Thompson. That's 3 starters. That's 3 very decent, very good starters. Now you need those other 2 pieces. Just signed Steven Adams to a long-term deal as a backup big. Rotation is cured. You do have Jeff Green, nice for, Kevin Durant to have Ime Udoka and Jeff Green there, players that, he has a previous relationship with. If you'll remember, Ime was on that Brooklyn Nets staff and then got hired to go and coach Boston. But Kevin Durant was a big proponent for, Ime Udoka taking a step up. So, you got that established relationship. And then you got this entire poo-poo platter of assets. You have Phoenix's picks, you have your own picks, you have Reed Shepherd, you have Cam Whitmore, you have Tari Eason, you have Jabari Smith. That's enough to go out and get Darius Garland. That's enough to go out and get Trey Murphy. That's enough to get a lot of players. One player that I think maybe isn't being talked about enough as a potential target for them, especially if they decide to move off of Fred VanVleet, is Ja Morant. Now, I have no idea where they're going to go with this. Obviously, Ime Udoka has a lot of respect for, Fred VanVleet, so maybe they're not looking at Ja Morant, but they need a guard who can penetrate. To make this entire lineup work, Sengun can stretch the floor a little bit, but he likes to operate on the block. Kevin Durant, certainly improves your shot making and half court scoring, but the one thing you definitively need is a guard who can get 2 feet in the paint. TJ McConnell, anyone? I don't know. Andrew Nembhard, anyone? I don't know. But somebody good, and you have all the assets in the world to make that happen. You could move up, you could take that number 10 pick, and you could probably move up significantly in this draft with all the assets you have. Houston is in a great position. Oh, they don't have the number 10 pick anymore, but they have picks. They have picks going forward. So they can certainly move back into this draft if they really, really want. They can get a little bit higher. But from Phoenix's side, I have no idea what they're doing. Okay, I'm happy for Kevin Durant. The saga is over. This is one of the greatest players of all time. It's one of the 20 greatest players, 15 greatest players, depending on who you talk to. And I don't think that his legacy could have withstood another bad destination. And I don't think he's been on a lot of good destinations. Again, I bring up the winning the headlines part, right? New ownership trying to win the headlines. What was Brooklyn trying to do when they signed Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving? Win the headlines. Oh, New York Knicks, we're the new kids in town. Look, we got the stars. They had no interest in actually winning championships. Teams that want to win championships think differently. A team that wants to win a championship makes calculated moves on the margins. They make basketball moves that make sense. You know what I mean? Like trading for Derek White. That's what a team that wants to win a championship does. Trading for Jalen Green is what teams that want to win headlines do, right? They trade for the big names. They trade for the inefficient, star who's not quite a star. They trade for the hometown kid to sell some revenue. They trade for the pastest prime star. And of course, you might think Houston is trying to win the headlines by trading for Kevin Durant. What's wrong with that? I don't think they're trying to win the headlines. I think Kevin Durant is still a great player. I think he was deeply unhappy last year. I think he is going to be super motivated, and I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I would be shocked if he's not an All-NBA player next year. Whoever traded for Kevin Durant, provided he wanted to be there, they were going to get a good player. Barring injuries, I think KD is going to be a top 14, top 13 player, and they didn't have one of those guys. And now, who knows? Maybe Alperen Şengün can take another step. One thing I'll tell you, I may not trust the ownership, Tillman Fertitta. I may not always trust the general manager, although he has been doing pretty well recently in Raphael Stone. But one man in that organization that I 100% trust is Ime Udoka. And Ime Udoka, Kevin Durant, this makes sense. This makes sense 100%. Now, the number 10 pick has moved. It has moved from the Houston Rockets to the Phoenix Suns. This changes the calculus of the draft quite a bit. And we will talk about that in a moment. First, let's talk about Game 7. The two greatest words in basketball, in sports. Game 7. This is what you play for. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was overheard right before Game 6 ended, saying, Game 7, Sunday, for all the marbles. This is the Lord's Day, depending on, what denomination you belong to. Sunday is the Lord's Day, and I got news for you. Black magic does not work on the Lord's Day. So, obviously, I'm going to stick to my guns and continue to think that OKC is the better team, that OKC should win at home. But I'm certainly going to tell you that I have a lot more respect for the Indiana Pacers than I did when I walked into the series. Clearly, when I picked the OKC Thunder to sweep them, when I said OKC in 3, this is not close. If you think OKC in 7, you don't know basketball. Yeah, I'm so wrong. And you might be thinking, Rob, if you've been so wrong this entire series about how the series was going to go, if you've been so wrong about this Indiana team all along, what harm is there? What harm is there right now in just switching up and saying, no, you know what? Indiana's going to win Game 7. I like to go down with the ship. So I'm going down with the ship. And my ship and my flag is firmly planted OKC. They have the best player in the series. It's not close. I think their home court advantage is one of the best in the league. History is on their side. But that being said, there's a reason why Michael Jordan never let it get to Game 7. There's a reason. Always closed it out in 5 or 6. Why? Because anything can happen in a one game. Anything can happen. Your star goes down, rolls an ankle, an adjustment flusters, you just go cold, they get super hot. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in one game. Maybe that's why Game 7s are so exciting. What do I think will happen? I think both teams will throw out their ace adjustments. I think both teams will come out and just, do what they've been holding back, and the better adjustment wins. And in a Game 7, and I said this, when Indiana went up 2-1, if this series goes to a Game 7, I think Indiana has the edge, even on the road. That was before Tyrese Halliburton's injury. How injured is he really? That will matter to me. I don't think this is a lock at all. I think this is a toss-up. I think the edge goes to OKC, but man, you'd be lying to yourself if you watch this series and think, yeah, they got this. They got this in the bag. No, they're going to have to fight for this, because every single time in this series when OKC has shown up flat, they have gotten killed. Both games they showed up flat, they got killed. Game 1, they show up to the fourth quarter flat, they got killed. So, ergo, OKC decides this series. For better or worse, OKC will decide who wins the series tonight. If they do not come out with a game plan, locked in, defensively, hustling, shooting those gaps, getting those turnovers, clamping up, communicating, making tough shots, not settling for jumpers, making their rotations, if they do the right shit, they will win this game. I think there's sort of a temptation that when a team gets beat, that you automatically assume that the team that got beat is worse than you thought they were, and the team that won is better than you thought they were. And typically in a 7-game series, that's how it should be, because more often than not, the better team does win a 7-game series. I think Indiana, if they were to win tonight, Pascal Siakam will probably get MVP, which means this is going to be a lot of me eating crow for saying I didn't think he could be the best player on a championship team. And I still don't think he can be the best player on a championship team. And tonight, if he wins, he will for a moment be the best player on a championship team. And I'll still stand here and tell you I think Scottie Barnes is a better player. I'll still stand here and tell you that I think the Raptors are better off for making this deal. But I'll also say players are not a constant. Players are fluid. Shit goes right and shit goes wrong. If a player gets fat and doesn't work out all offseason and they come out totally washed, you're not wrong for thinking this player is amazing in the preseason. Similarly, when a player is inoptimally used and is struggling with that role and it's not leading to a lot of winning, and there's a lot of disastrous moments for them in, tight situations, late game situations, and you've seen over and over that they're not capable of doing this, and then they go into another situation which is just more conducive to them and they succeed. That doesn't mean that you were necessarily wrong. It does mean that information changed. You'd be very, very wrong to assume that even if Pascal Siakam wins Finals MVP, that it would be on par with the Finals MVP that Kawhi won or the Finals MVP that Kevin Durant won. You can stack the numbers next to each other and make the point for yourself. This is not close. This doesn't mean that he automatically, I don't think anybody is going to walk away saying, yeah, I guess this means Pascal's a top 10 player. Whoops. But that's how the Raptors treated him from 2021 to 2023. They treated him like he was destined to be a top 10 player. And the push to trade him was specifically because you needed to get younger and he wasn't a top 10 player and he wasn't going to be a top 10 player. But when he was traded, didn't most of us agree and concede that he was a top 20 player? Is there anybody on Indiana that strikes that type of confidence in you that this is a top 10 player going forward? Are you positive that Tyrese Halliburton's a top 10 player? Are you positive? No. So this will be an aberration. This will be a glitch in the matrix. This will be a team that won through coaching. This will be a team that won without a superstar if they win. And on the other end, one team has to win, one team has to lose. This will be a choke job for OKC. This will be them showing their age, in my opinion. This is not to take any credit away from the Indiana Pacers. They have been the better coach team all series. They have been the more consistent team all series. They've had bad moments, but their bad moments are not as bad as the OKC bad moments. That being said, my prediction is OKC wins. My prediction is Shea is who I think he is, right? My prediction is that J-Dub shows up, that Chet shows up, that Alex Caruso shows up. My prediction is that their adjustments, especially at home, where they are almost impossible to beat, will be too much and too overwhelming. My prediction and my analysis is that the gap in talent that I thought existed before game one still exists today. Chet has not been great. J-Dub has been inconsistent. He had an NBA record minus 40 on-off rating last game. That's an NBA record for a finals game. Minus 40. Shea had 8 turnovers. He's just not a player that gets those types of turnovers. There's a lot of thoughts that spiral through my head as I was watching Game 6, man. And one of them, and this may seem very much like I'm coping or I'm being conspiratorial, but these are human beings. And there's a human element to basketball. Did some part of this team, subconsciously or consciously, want to win this at home? Did they just say to themselves, no, we want to win this in front of our fans. We got game 7. We're going to get game 7. If any bit of that is true, I'm very disappointed. If that even is 2% of the equation, I'm very disappointed. The Raptors took care of business in game 6, right? You take care of business when you can. You don't leave it up to chance. You have what Greg Popovich used to call appropriate fear, because you're lying to yourself if you think everything's going to go right for you and everything's going to go bad for them. You're lying to yourself if you believe that just playing harder than them is going to mean that they're going to miss every single shot. What if they just hit crazy shots? This is the modern NBA. Any team can win on any night, okay? You could be like 18-point favorites and lose because of three-point shooting and variance. Because when one team goes cold and the other team goes hot, and again, it's worth noting, OKC has won in this series while losing the three-point differential multiple times. They've won and stayed in games when they were losing the turnover margin. The gap of error is huge. It's huge, right? Their margin of error is enormous in this series. They are that much better. What does this mean for Shea if he loses? It means it's going to be a long, long offseason. My hope, and it's fair. That's fair, by the way. It should be. We've said a lot of things about Shea on this channel. I have said a lot of things about Shea on the panel. I've compared him to Steph. I've compared him to Kobe. I've compared him to Michael. That's not necessarily to say he's better than those players. I've said this is where he's at right now. This is where he's going. His best moments have rivaled those players. Not quite Michael, but sure. Harden, Wade, greats, right? Apart from Harden, almost every single player we're talking about, champion. So you're the best player in the league. Well, you're not really, but you're close. You're like one of the top two players in the league. You're a superstar. You're in your prime. Yes, you've got a young core around you, and we can point to that. But you asked to be here. You asked for the crown. You put the crown. You got your teammates gassing up, saying you're the best player in the league. They petitioned for you to win MVP. You want an MVP. You want to be the best player in the world. You want to be one of the greatest players of all time. Show up. That's it. It's that simple. You have to show up. And I don't want to hear anything about shooting variance because you choked game 6. 8 turnovers is inexcusable for a star player of his magnitude. You can't have games like that in the finals. So you know what? I don't want Shea to come out and think, I don't want to lose this game because it's going to be a long offseason. And I don't think, knowing what little I know about him, I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's excited. I think he's got a genuine, positive excitement about this moment. Everyone's watching. Everyone's watching. All the haters, all the people who said you're a fraud MVP, all the people who said you're the most embarrassing MVP to watch, all the people who chant not like us every single time you're on the road, every single one of them is watching. You're on the clock. You're the star. Nobody else in this series is in your conversations. Nobody else in this series has likened comparisons to Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. Nobody else in this series has an MVP. You're the only one. And when the lights get this bright, you have to show up. And if you don't show up, we talk about you differently. Doesn't mean your career is defined by your lowlights. LeBron lost in 2011, ironically, to Rick Carlisle and the Dallas Mavericks. Safe to say, he recovered. He won 2 straight, won a championship with Cleveland in 2016, won a bubble championship in 2020. He recovered. His legacy is fine. A lot of people think he's the greatest player of all time. Steph Curry, he had a meltdown, up 3-1 in the finals against, ironically, LeBron James, lost. Got Kevin Durant, won 2 more. Lost Kevin Durant, won 1 more. His legacy is fine. Some people think he's the best point guard of all time. This will not be the book on Shea. But if you genuinely want to be one of the top 5, 6, 7 players to ever play this game, and you lose this, this will be brought up at your funeral. This will be brought up when you enter the Hall of Fame. This will always be the one that got away. Don't let it get away. Don't let it get away. I don't want to hear nothing about reps. I don't want to hear nothing about anything tonight. I hope they call it fair. I hope we get a good game. Certainly, from a basketball fan perspective, I don't want to see a 30-point blowout in the NBA Finals Game 7. Rob, please show up to playback tonight. It's going to be a movie. Well, you don't have to tell me to show up to playback. I'm there. I'm going to be there. I'm 100% there. Who are the refs tonight? I don't know. Haven't looked at it yet. Let's talk about the draft very briefly. We did the mock draft video. Give me a shout out if you ended up seeing it. If you did not see it, where is it? We got it. Hang on. Let me show y'all something. If you did not see it, here's what you missed. It never in NBA history has a 59th pick ever held up a trade until now. But, leave it to Erson.
Give me Conconnipple.
Queen can help alleviate the rebounding that Sarr gives up.
How about RJ and Grady? Deal. Done. They're going to hate me for this. They're going to say I overpaid. Okay. It was really fun. A lot of work to edit because I'm not used to editing anymore. I haven't edited a lot recently. I used to be a professional editor, film editor. I've edited so much. I've edited 2 features, and this was a slog for me. So it was nice to get those editing muscles moving again, and I'm sure that if I did it again right now, like, I could do better. I'll tell you, casting, Erison is so knowledgeable. Well, I got great news for you if you believe this. So let me just show you something here. Da, 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 da. So on June 25th, guess what? Erison is going to be here, and he and I are going to break down the draft for you guys live, reacting. It's going to be really fun. May have some special guests come through. It's going to be a call-in show. We'll get your reactions. It's going to be a super, super fun episode. I can't wait. It's usually 1,000 people bumping in here around the Raptors draft pick. We'll do the second day as well. Super cool. FA, I'm sure he'll call in. I'm sure Vince will call in. I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of your familiars, will call in. I'm sure Coach Mo will be around. I got to tell you, I have secretly hated how much of me and just me is on these podcasts. I vastly prefer conversations to dialogues, way more. Conversation is so much better than a dialogue is better than a monologue for me. And a lot of these lives end up somewhat monotonous and me sort of rambling for an hour. That being said, been watching a lot of movies recently. A lot of movies. I ironically watched 3 Anna Kendrick movies in a row, and they were all dope. Okay, we watched Stowaway. My girlfriend and I, we watched Stowaway. We watched Dear something. Was it Alice Dear Alice or Alice Dear? And we watched Woman of the Hour. So 3 Anna Kendrick movies. And in trying to understand Stowaway, we ended up watching this super dope YouTube channel. And this guy was straight spitting. Like, he was just brilliant film analysis, picked up on things that I didn't think about very much. I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, so I sometimes need to have some of the planets and shit and space and technology explained to me a little bit. So it's really cool. And I thought, man, this guy is great. Let me sub up. And I subbed to his channel, and I realized, this guy's made like 150 videos, and he had 420 subscribers. And some of his videos had like 40 views. And we decided to watch a couple more of them. And there's so much work that went into his videos. I mean, they weren't consistently great or anything, but you can clearly see the guy had a personality. He was really awesome. And I just looked over at my girlfriend. And I'm like, I am so fucking lucky. I am so lucky that I have a platform where 2 a.m., 2 p.m., Sunday, unannounced, late, there's always a community show up. And she said, it's because you're honest. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm sure this guy thinks he's honest too. I think I'm just lucky. So I'm very lucky, very lucky. There's so many hidden gems on YouTube. I found like 6 of them yesterday, just looking at review channels. So many videos, so much work that goes into them. And some of these videos get like, they don't have 12, 13,000 subscribers, man. This is a very, very rare gift. And to be able to do this is very cool. So I'm looking forward to doing more good stuff. I've been a lot more social recently. So this is part of my, let's call it, evolution as a human being. I've been a lot more social recently, understanding myself a little bit more, understanding how to be a little bit more of a team player. I think all the pushback I got on the panel for being not as good a team player is very helpful for me. So yeah, so I look forward to more collaborations this year. I think it's better for this community to get, more people In the process of reaching out to people for the draft video, a lot of them couldn't show up. We were initially going to do 8 people, and then 3 people had to duck out because we had to change the time. So those people are still people that I've talked to now. And so I can always bring them on. And I promise you, they're content creators you've heard of and people that you like and people who are, sufficiently knowledgeable about the draft. So maybe in the week following up the draft, we're able to bring some of those people on and have conversations with them. Also, couple dope videos with Catherine coming out this week that I got to edit up. One on the neuroscience of sleep, the other on the neuroscience of prospect evaluation. I think the prospect evaluation video better come out tomorrow. So yeah, I'm loving the collaborations. I hope there's more. I hope there's even more. I realize when I venture outside of this community that I have a little bit of a reputation at times, and I'll tell you why. What I think about this, not necessarily what I think about it, but just something that I realized about myself. So there's a channel called Shark Bites. I don't know if you guys have heard of this channel. It's called Shark Bites, and it's this shark scientist who breaks down differences in sharks. I'm obsessed with sharks. I've been obsessed with sharks my whole life. So some of you know, like Rob Stewart was my friend. So I just really got hooked to this channel, and my girlfriend and I were watching this channel. And ironically, we started watching it after we watched what was that film with Blake Lively? The shark movie with Blake Lively. I'm forgetting the name right now. Someone let me know in the chat what was the shark movie with Blake Lively. Anyways, we watched it. We wanted to see how accurate it was and stuff like that. So we started watching his channel. We got hooked to it. And about 6 episodes in, I kind of backed off of him. I was like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And I had to think about why. Why did I back off of him? Shallows. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, this is it. The reason I backed off of him is because I had followed this content creator for a few years, Ocean Ramsey, and she's always swimming with the sharks, and she claims to be a scientist. We don't know if that's true, a marine biologist. We don't know if that's true. And he just ripped her for an entire episode. He was just talking about her, and he was like, she's not a real scientist. She didn't really reach out to me, and et cetera, et cetera. And what she's doing with these animals is bad. And what I'm doing is real science. And what she's doing is fake science. And I was just like, no, I'm good off this. I'm good off this. I kind of just backed off of him. And I had to take a moment to think about it. I'm like, well, how's that any different than what I do with Michael Grange? I'll be like, no, I'm doing real analysis. Michael Grange is this. I don't think it's possible to talk so negatively about somebody else without turning off a really, really large segment of people. And any time that I feel really good about myself and I need to bring myself back down to earth, I'll definitely tune into Reddit and see what they think about me there, right? Or I'll look at the PC comments and see. So it can't be everybody. I'm not saying everybody's right, but I'm saying you're clearly doing something to turn off a lot of people. And I think this channel could have been a lot bigger if I wasn't so objectionable. But clearly I am objectionable, and that's partially why I'm so thankful that I have as many of you here as we do. That no matter the rambling quality of this video, I mean, I just totally detoured off the topic for 10 minutes, and we still have 230 people here. And I was talking with my girlfriend about this, and she said it's because you're doing something different. You're doing something true. You're doing something honest, and that's important. And this led me to thinking about Asperger's a lot, actually. It led me to thinking about my own neurodivergence. It led me to thinking about the fact that I don't know how to lie, that I don't really even, I wouldn't even, if I wish I could. I'll tell you, it's a great strategy. Sometimes you wish you can lie. Sometimes you wish you could hold back what you really think about Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham after they have a 35-point game. Because in that moment, strategically, it's probably strategic to just be like, yeah, they're pretty good. But no, I'm gonna be like, nah, still trash. And people will be like, he's a hater. But that's how I feel. And so whether I'm right or wrong about this draft, whether I'm right about Carter Bryant, Kaman Malawach, whether I'm right about Ace Bailey, whether I'm right about any of these people, I can only promise you a few things. One, I'm going to own up to it. So if I'm wrong, I'll own up to it. I'm never going to walk away from the fact that I was super high on Carter. If Carter ends up being a bust, I will wear it not as a badge of honor, but, because I don't know any other way. And if Ace Bailey turns into an MVP, I'll wear that too. I'll say I was wrong about Ace Bailey the same way I say I was wrong about Brandon Miller, the same way I say I'm wrong about Scoot Henderson so far. You can't only take the victories. You have to take the L's too. If I'm going to sit here and brag that I was early on Dyson Daniels the whole way through, I saw Dyson Daniels for who he was at G League Ignite, I have to take the L too. I have to take the L. So with that being said, I'll shift my focus over for the next 10, 15 minutes to the draft. So that video, the mock draft, to those of you who haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. I think it was pretty cool. We gave 5 minutes of detailed evaluation for every single first round pick. We explored trades, and I'm happy with how the Raptors broke out of that draft, but it did remind me this is really hard to get a second top 10 pick. And allegedly, the Raptors, now that Giannis is off the table and Kevin Durant is off the table, are looking at a couple of options. Option number 1, Malik Monk. Option number 2, potentially another top 10 pick. Now, why would you possibly trade? Okay, let me organize my thoughts here for a sec. I'll talk about this, and then I'll talk about my thoughts on Ace Bailey in that situation, because we haven't really talked about it. And I feel like my view on Ace is changing, because I talked to somebody who was really close to Ace a couple of days ago, and that was very eye-opening for me. Yes, I had Rayon Rupert 13th on my board that year. And in fairness, I still believe him as a prospect, but if I could do it again, I probably would have him like close to 30th or 28th. People say I was wrong about Jacoby last year. I don't think I was that wrong, but yeah, I had him 17th on my board last year, 16th. I had him 16th on my board. We picked him 19th. Most people had him somewhere between 10 and 20. So I don't think I was necessarily lower than the consensus or higher than consensus. But yeah, if I could do it again, Jacoby would probably be 10, top 10 for me. I did have Matas at 4th. I don't remember people bringing that up. But yeah. Anyways, why do you trade RJ Barrett or Jakob Poeltl or Ochai Baji? Why do you trade these players? I'll give you one clear reason. Optionality. Now, it's really hard to quantify optionality, right? But that's the reason why people save money, invest money, because they want options. They don't want to have to work when they're 65. They want options. Well, this is why you stockpile draft picks and bring in reasonable contracts and trade for players who have considerable value around the league and archetypes that have value around the league. And this is why you draft those types of players as well, by the way. Now, we just saw number 2 pick from the 2021 draft, Jalen Green, go for Kevin Durant. And they added number 10 plus Dillon Brooks. Now, I want you to imagine that instead of Jalen Green, the Houston Rockets had drafted Scotty Barnes. Well, Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant is not happening. So that's the gap. That's the gap. The Raptors would never, no team would trade Scotty Barnes right now for Kevin Durant. I don't think, unless that team is crazy. That's the gap. The gap between Scotty and Kevin Durant, Scotty and Jalen Green, is Dillon Brooks, a number 10 pick, and probably more, probably much more. What about Evan Mobley? I think if Phoenix wanted Evan Mobley back for Kevin Durant, they would probably have to attach Devin Booker as a sweetener. That deal is not getting done. What about Franz Wagner? You're not getting Franz Wagner for Kevin Durant. I think if Phoenix called up the Orlando Magic, you see my point? Valuable archetypes. 3-and-D wings. Multi-positional defenders. Switch bigs. This is where the league is going. You know who's not valuable? Anything but the top tier shot makers. We just saw Gary Trent, who is a pretty decent bucket getter, get a minimum contract. We just saw Jalen Green get traded as a filler. He was salary filler in this deal. Yeah, I'm sure it was a little bit better. But would they not have preferred Jabari and Reed? I'm sure they would have. If they're not stupid, they would have. So it's not just to say that everyone who scores 25 points per game or 20 points per game inefficiently is useless. But if you don't have the other stuff, if you can't do the movement shooting, if you can't be a decent defender and ideally a significantly plus defender, if you can't fit into a whole bunch of schemes off the ball and on the ball, defensively and offensively, you're just not that valuable. As a commodity, as a trade piece, you're just not that valuable. And unfortunately, if you're a drop big who isn't like elite and you're not a super stretch big, you're not that valuable either. You're not that valuable. Now, I'm not saying Jakob Poeltl is valueless. I'm just saying he's not that valuable. I'm not saying RJ Barrett is valueless. I'm just saying he's not that valuable. The only way for RJ Barrett to become valuable is to become a plus defender. If he could be a plus defender and 3 to 4% more efficient, now we're cooking with gas. Now you got a $30 million player. The problem is offense often gets paid. Cam Thomas is about to get paid. Probably. I'm hearing $25 million. Problem is in the NBA, someone's going to score 20 to 25 on your team. Every team has a 20-point per game scorer, right? Every team. Someone's got to do that. The problem is, if I give you those touches and I give you those shot attempts, what are you really giving me back for it? Are you giving me efficient point production on those shots? Are you giving me efficient playmaking? And on the other end, do I have to hide you defensively? This is the player you don't want to draft. Now, who reminds me of this in this draft? Well, ironically, it's a couple players that I really like. And one of them is Jeremiah Fears. There are 100 paths that Jeremiah Fears can go, and 80% of them are terrible. Terrible. This is star upside in a nutshell. He's not a great defender. He's going to be small positionally. He's not multi-positional. He's not the greatest shooter, but he is a shot maker. He is an athlete. But that athleticism doesn't mean a hell of a lot when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. He's not the greatest off the ball. So when you compare a Jeremiah Fears to a VJ Edgecombe, what's the gap? Scalability, portability. That's the gap. Talent, certainly. Handle, certainly. Jeremiah Fears. I feel like a lot of people would watch VJ Edgecombe and watch Jeremiah Fears and come to the wrong conclusion that Jeremiah Fears is the better prospect. No, he's a better player, but he's not the better prospect. It's the same thing with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. When you see one of Scotty's really rough games offensively, where he shoots like 6 for 18 or 6 for 19 and he can't get a dribble off and he's dribbling high and he's losing the ball off his foot and stuff, you might be tempted to say, what this RJ guy is doing is so much better. What this Jalen Green guy is doing so much better. But what you don't see is one player can be a better player. The other player is a much better asset, better prospect. And the prospect and end of it is the optionality. It's all about optionality. So that's on the court. What about on the cap sheet? The optionality of getting off of contracts like RJ and Jakob, it doesn't necessarily make you a player in free agency. Not that you would necessarily want to be a player in free agency, this free agency class. It's not a lot of great talent. Maybe, unless you want to make a big swing for Miles Turner or Naz Reid. But what it does allow you is space. And space in a league where a lot of teams don't have space could be a very, very valuable thing. And you can't price that. Last year, the Raptors had space. They had a trade option and they had space. And they used that space to make a really great deal with the Sacramento Kings, in which they got effectively for the worst player in the NBA who was waived immediately, Jalen McDaniels. They got Davion Mitchell, multiple second-round picks, and Sasha Vezenkov, who was subsequently waived for $0 or bought out. And Davion ended up being a decent player for you and ended up netting you another second-round pick. So you got 3 second-round picks. I think Jamal Shead could actually be a player in the league. So you got a real player and multiple seconds to eat a little bit of salary. Those are the types of deals that you can make when you're under that luxury tax level. You have plenty of, trade exceptions, mid-level exceptions. You can do a lot of stuff. But when RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl are eating up $47 to $48 million of cap space, You don't have those options. You know, the best contracts in the NBA are players taken between 20, I would say 22 and 8 in the NBA draft that actually work out, right? Now, obviously, the superstar like Victor Wembanyama, who goes number 1, is a huge bargain discount. But when you look at a player like J-Dub or Chet, they're providing huge value for their contract. And when you think about it from the Raptors' perspective, hitting on the number 10 pick is worth much more than Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, or RJ Barrett. Just one for one. That number 10 pick, if it hits, and of course, you have to do a lot of work for it to hit. You'll have to be patient. You'll have to wait a year for that player to kind of get their NBA bearings around them. That's a very valuable asset from a team building perspective, especially for a team that is looking to be super competitive in a couple of years. So my perspective on this is I walked into this offseason saying, you got BI, you got Scotty, you need to get Kevin Durant. You need to go for it. You need to swing for the fences, make a deal, parse out that 2026 first round pick, whatever, top 10 protected, and go out and get you a real chance to make some noise. But then a few things have happened. And, you know, as we like to say on PC, new information. Orlando makes a trade for Desmond Bane, therefore catapulting them significantly above you. They were already above you, and now they're way above you. You don't have a counterpunch to that move because I don't think Masai Ujiri is willing to move off of 4 first-round picks for Devin Booker. So, okay, now you're hoping on internal growth. But the way I look at this roster is you still got plenty of holes. There's a lot of question marks. I have no idea how Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and RJ Barrett can play in the same lineup when all three of them kind of need the basketball in their hands. How is Emmanuel Quickley going to deal with a scaled back role? How is RJ going to do with a scaled back role? At least Quickley is a great shooter. How are Scotty and BI and Jakob, this whole thing, if it doesn't work, you're really like going to destroy these guys' trade value. RJ Barrett has positive value for the first time in years right now. What happens when he goes off the ball and he ends up averaging 14 points per game on low motivation? Not on low motivation. I was looking at this, my bad, on low efficiency. What if he can't scale? What if he has the same trouble that Pascal Siakam had moving off the ball and he just can't operate in that role without more creation touches? Well, then what do? You move Brandon Ingram off the ball, ruin his trade value. You need to be very cognizant when your pieces don't fit together, because when pieces don't fit together, they kind of corrode each other's trade value. And you won't know that until they play together. But by the time they do play together, it might be too late. That's the point. So I would prefer that the Raptors be proactive right now. What does proactivity look like? Well, proactive could look like making a significant upgrade or making a significant downgrade. That's what proactivity looks like. Choosing a road and sticking to it. Proactivity is dumping the contracts of RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl and picking up Kaman Malawach in the draft. That's proactivity. Delay the timeline. You agree to be bad next year in a loaded draft. You're not making the playoffs probably with a roster that young. You play Kaman tremendous amount of minutes. You let Scotty know one more year of this. Sorry, guy. One more year. We need to be bad this year. You and Brandon Ingram, we're going to play you together. We're going to play you with a whole bunch of rookies. You're probably going to lose a ton of games. We'll be lucky to win 32 games next year. And then you roll the dice in the lottery. And this time, instead of 1 Cooper flag, you have 4 Cooper flags in next year's draft, or 3 Cooper flags, or 3 players who might be better than Cooper flag in next year's draft. You roll it that way. Or you go the other way and you decide to parse out some of your future flexibility, maybe parse out a little bit of your youth, and go out and get a player who can actually contribute, who fits with this core. I am steadfast on this idea that this core, if you consider Jacoby, Scotty, BI, if that's your core, if Quickley is a part of that, I'm convinced they need a stretch big. I'm convinced. From a basketball perspective, we're space and space, everything we're doing, you need a stretch big. Now, obviously, there's a world in which BI looks perfect. He's super healthy, super motivated. Scotty comes out, he's taking a jump. We know he likes to take his jumps in 24-month intervals. So there's a chance that even this team could be good. 46, 47 wins is not out of the question in a depleted East. Certainly possible. This team does nothing but make a good pick at 9, keep their guys, maybe bring back Chris Boucher as a depth piece, sign some two-way guy, rotate out some of those pieces, maybe sign a veteran big in free agency on the minimum, and you're back. 47 wins. But do you have a chance? Do you have a chance against Indiana? I think you do. Do you have a chance against Orlando? Hard to see that. Do you have a chance against a healthy Boston team? New York? Who are you beating? And God forbid you get to the finals. You have a chance against OKC, San Antonio, Dallas, the Lakers, whoever comes out of Denver. I don't think you do. So if Scottie takes a superstar jump, everything changes. At which point, I think you'll need to make this move anyway. If you believe internally that Scottie is about to take that superstar jump, then I think it would be prudent to make a deal to get better very quickly. If you don't believe that Scottie is going to be a superstar and that Brandon Ingram's health issues could be lingering, then I don't think you have bought yourself enough cushion with the rest of this roster to be sustainable in the East as a contender. In which case, why be mid? Why be a playing team? Why be 6th? Why be 5th? I don't want to do it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm like, no middle. I don't want middle. I want bottom or I want top. That's what she said. Okay, that's actually what I want, though. I want this team to either bottom out or top out. Kevin Durant would have been the latter. Trading RJ and Jakob Poeltl and going into this year with a rookie center rotation would be the bottom, right? That's what I want. Now, in terms of the draft, I want to talk briefly about Ace Bailey before we get out of here. A lot of talk about Ace Bailey. A lot of talk about maybe his trade value is falling, draft value is falling. And I've been very low on Ace Bailey this entire way through. So if he ends up being a bust, I was very right and I was very early. However, talking to a lot of people around him, well, not a lot of people around him, one person around him, and talking to a few people who are plugged into that situation as I have throughout the year, I get the sense that maybe people are sleeping on him a little too much now. There's a formula to success in the NBA when it comes to wings, right? Wings tend to do better when there's more space. Fluid wings, even more so. Fluid wings with a handle and ball skills, even more so than that. Can't teach that type of size and shot making. And truly, if you watch his better possessions, you really could sell yourself on this guy's an all-star. He's going to be an all-star. I think the defense, there's potential there. If he commits himself to an off-ball role, and if you talk to him and you feel that he will do that, this is a top 4 pick in this draft. 100%. You should pick him. Top 4. He's also a really hard worker, and from what I've heard, a really good kid. Like, I feel like he's getting a little bit of a bad rep because of a PR hit, maybe by some teams that want him to fall. But I think this overwhelming amount of negativity around Ace Bailey is probably unwarranted and a little bit unfair. Now, you can take issues with his efficiency. Yes. Shot selection. Yes. Handle being high. Yes. Maybe a little bit overrated defender, unwilling at times. Maybe the passing, could get better. But when you consider the grace that we extend to guys like Kaman and, Cooper Flagg for being super young, Jeremiah Fierce for being super young, Ace Bailey is just as young as those guys. There's 5 18-year-olds who are going to go in the lottery this year. That hasn't happened since high schoolers were allowed in the NBA draft. Noah Senge is 18 years old. Cooper Flagg's 18. Kaman is 18. Jeremiah Fierce is 18. And yes, Ace Bailey is 18. And I think that among those players who are 18, it was Ace who was in the worst situation for himself. So many times where just the physicality got to him. He was going up against 23, 24-year-olds. This is not going to be a rookie of the year. He's not winning rookie of the year. This is not going to be a surefire all-star. This is not going to be a guy who's going to come out and blow the brakes off, and be amazing off the gate. But he sounds like a very mentally tough kid. Sounds like he comes from really good people. Sounds like he has a really loving support system around him. Doesn't seem like, he's a problem kid or anything like that. Doesn't seem like he's going to come into your locker room and, take his career not seriously and be partying all the time. So I feel like, if he falls to 8 or 9 and he's there, I think if you're the Raptors, you cannot pass up on this level of talent if you trust the mental even 80%. I think it will matter a lot to him and for him that he ends up in the right situation. But I definitely believe that anyone seeing him as like, oh, he should have a Cam Whitmore-esque fall. No, he absolutely should not. He is a much better player than Cam Whitmore as a prospect. Again, player, not prospect. I should say he's a better prospect than Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore's a better player. He is a better prospect. And frankly, he's a very good prospect, and I could certainly see the vision. I also see the downside. I totally get it. People who are spooked about him, Fears, and specifically Queen, those 3 guys, they seem to be the most polarizing guys in this draft because the floor is so amazingly low. And I think Kasparis and Yegor Demon could also be thrown into that because the floor is quite bad. The ceiling is also quite good too, right? We can't just talk about the floor without the ceiling. Right? So again, I think that some of the stuff that I've heard recently about, Ace being, just a guy who keeps to himself, lives in the gym, works on his craft, is obsessed with hoops. These are all predictors of success. This is good. This is good. Him saying he has no weaknesses, does he really think he has no weaknesses? I would want to know that. I really like if I'm a team that's drafting him, I want to say like, was that just you being funny? Because apparently he's a really funny guy. Was that just you being funny? Was that you kind of maybe talking out of your ass a little bit? Or do you genuinely believe that you don't have weaknesses? Because I'll tell you right now, it takes guts to do what he's doing, man. It really does. Canceling workouts on teams you don't want to go to, trying to control your draft process. This takes guts. It takes guts. What he's shown me by choosing Rutgers, number 1, by talking about himself and interviewing the way he did, by handling his draft process the way he did, by hiring an agent who is his friends, Omar Cooper. What he's shown me is he is deviant, and not deviant in a bad way, but like he is going to deviate from the status quo. He is not normal. He's not a normal player. He's not a normal person. He doesn't think like people. He's not a consensus guy. He doesn't care what you think. He doesn't care what's supposed to be or what you think he's supposed to do. He's just going to do it his way. Those people either end up really, really successful or really, really pitiful. And usually what determines it is adaptability and work ethic. I have seen the work ethic. I don't know about the adaptability, but I'm just saying his chances of success are about as high as anyone in this draft not named Cooper Flagg. So I'm just laying this out there as low as I've been on him, as much as I don't really love his archetype as a player. The talent is undeniable, and he's there. So maybe a team that's really interested in him will trade up for him. I think he's hoping for that. I don't think he wants to go and play behind Paul George. I don't think he wants to go to Philly. I don't think he wants to go to San Antonio. I think he wants to stay on the East Coast, probably Brooklyn, probably Washington, or maybe he's hoping that a team like Cleveland or someone will trade for him. I actually believe that he is going to Utah as well. Yeah. In terms of other players around the draft, am I starting to rethink myself on Carter Bryant? No. I am actually more double down, triple down, quadruple down on Carter Bryant than I've ever been. I think I've heard even more stuff over the last couple of days that's made me very encouraged about him. And I'm prepared to be wrong, though. I'm prepared to be wrong about the Raptors' interest in him. I'm prepared to be wrong about his, upside. I'm prepared to be wrong about his trajectory. But man, when it comes to the draft, you make educated guesses. You bet on players that show you that they have the right stuff. There's that old saying that we used to say when we were kids, like shoot for the moon. Worst case, you'll land among the stars, right? It's cliche, but it holds true here. You shoot for the moon, and when the moon, in this case, is Carter Bryant, you'll still land among the stars in the 80th percentile, 60th percentile, 50th percentile outcomes. Still a good player. I'll scale it up for you. If Carter Bryant is anything above the 50th percentile outcome for himself, he's a rotation player in the NBA. We go to 55th to 60th percentile outcome. He has a 12-year career as a upper rotation, probably off the bench, wing who guards and wreaks havoc, on the perimeter and, hits a few threes. Think Trevor Ariza, good athlete in transition. Move it up a little bit to the 65th percentile outcome, and maybe you get something close to Thaddeus Young, right? Thaddeus Young, Philly, athletic Thaddeus Young. A little bit, develop some of that connected playmaking, short roll passing, multi-positional, play the 3, play the 4, somewhere there. Add some high volume 3-point shooting to that, and you get a career similar to Otto Porter, right? And again, I love his jump shot. I think his jump shot is great. It's not quite Otto Porter, but Otto was an older prospect coming out. So if he can hit that, well, if Otto had not had health concerns, I think Otto is a borderline Hall of Famer. But he consistently had injuries. So maybe Carter is the healthy version of Otto Porter Jr. Is that worth swinging a gamble on? Because I swear, when the Raptors signed Otto Porter, I was very firm. This is the best signing in Raptors history. I was so excited to get Otto because I've loved him for so long as a player. And it just sucks how injured he was for the Raptors. But man, when he played, it was like whatever side of the court he was on, the other team could not score. Carter is similar in that way. But what if you get beyond the high volume 3-point shooting and the connective playmaking? What if you get to some prime shit off the dribble? What if you get 2-3 dribble pull-ups? What if you get 2-3 dribble into the paint? What if you level up that great positionally versatile defense into lockdown defender? What if he just dials in and says, I'm going to be the best defender in the NBA? Well, now you really are starting to talk about some all-star shit here. Get a little bit further than that. What about primary creation, on-ball reps as a pick-and-roll ball handler? Am I going to trust the guy that developed Devin Booker and Desmond Bane to develop Carter Bryant? 100% I am. 100% I am. Darko Rajakovic is the right coach for this guy. I cannot imagine in a million years how the team that drafted Scotty Barnes and chose to build a franchise around Scotty Barnes, the team that drafted Jacoby Walter and Jonathan Mobo, a team that valued Brandon Ingram, a team that has Darko Rajakovic, who has a track record with Devin Booker and Bradley and Desmond Bane and Kevin Durant. I cannot imagine how this team is going to be the team that passes up on Carter Bryant. But I'm prepared for it. I'm prepared for it. Yes, I would take him over. Come on. Yes, I would take him over a lot of players. You don't want to know how high he is on my board right now, but I will do a final board on Tuesday. We'll have you guys covered for the NBA draft on Wednesday evening. And I think I will do a post-game reaction show tonight as well. I'll be on playback, but I'll do it after, maybe like an hour or so after, as the champagne dissipates and the interviews come out and stuff. We'll do a post-game reaction to the new NBA champions. Regardless, neither of these teams won last year, so we will have a new NBA champion tonight. My bet is OKC, but as you know, I don't bet. Talk to y'all later. Have a good one. And tonight or tomorrow morning, it will be late tonight. Late tonight. Very late tonight. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our new subscribers. I think we got like 20 new subscribers yesterday because of that draft video. If you haven't checked out that draft video, once again, definitely go check it out. And if you're not subscribed to PENSARE Basketball, this lunatic, who's just screaming at all these people. I don't understand why. Why don't they like me, man? I feel like I'm Will Smith right now. How come he don't want me, man? It never in NBA history has a 59th pick ever held up a trade until now. But, leave it to Erson.
Give me Concanapple.
Queen can help alleviate the rebounding that Sar gives up.
How about RJ and Grady? Deal. Done. They're going to hate me for this. They're going to say I overpaid.